This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, show 9. There was something supernatural about this interview.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers, with your host, Ramsey Majaba. Ramsey has watched every single episode of Supernatural.
Hello, SE Nation, and thank you for joining me today. And I've watched every single episode of Supernatural up to the point where my wife recorded this intro. I've fallen behind right now. Might most likely catch up after my youngest gets a bit older and goes to bed at a reasonable hour and not 9 o'clock. Okay, so now that I've told the whole world how good of a father I am, I want to wish all fathers a very happy Father's Day. I hope you had so much fun with your family yesterday. And keep going forward. And okay, on that emotional note, I wanted to do some housekeeping stuff. I want to thank everyone who's been listening. It's been amazing. Thank you guys. But I need your help to spread the word a little bit more. So I'm doing a giveaway. 3 hardworking people will get some awards. It has nothing to do with luck. It's not a draw. You will have to put in a little bit of effort, not too much. What I'm going to do is give you points for every action that you do. For example, if you subscribe to the newsletter on my website, on the show notes for this episode, which is www.wethesalesengineers.com/show9, you'll get points. If you refer this podcast to somebody else and they subscribe to the newsletter, you get points and they get points. And the awards or the giveaways, so I'm going to give 3 awards. The first place award is going to get 2 books, Spin Selling and The New Solution Selling, and we'll get a Rocketbook notebook. Second place will get 2 of the 3, and the third place will get 1 of the 3. So, and once you subscribe, I will follow up with another email on how you can get more points. Hopefully this will be fun. You might enjoy doing that, and it will help me reach more people. I've received a couple of letters on LinkedIn saying that I've been helpful to them, which is great. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. So if you can help me reach more people and I can help them by interviewing people who are smarter than me, then I think that's a good thing. So enough of that. Today's guest is Andrew Curtis of iCIMS. Andrew has been there for a very long time, and he's moved up the career ladder very successfully. This conversation was amazing, in my humble opinion. And if you know me, it's not very humble. Even after we finished talking, I wanted to keep talking to Andrew, but we both have jobs to get back to, so we went our separate ways. And we covered a wide variety of topics. We dug a little bit more about how you can move into an SE position if you're not currently an SE. So if you're a technical person, like you're doing coding or any other kind of position, how you can actually move into the SE role. And we also dug deep a little bit more about discovery calls. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And without further ado, here's Andrew. Hey, Andrew. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. I am happy to have you on, and I'm excited because I think you're in a domain that I have not been exposed to. So do you mind just giving us I don't want to say a recap, so a cap of what career you've been enjoying so far?
Absolutely. So I work at a SaaS software company based out of New Jersey called iCIMS. We sell human resource software specifically focusing on talent acquisition. So think of the customers, any corporation, any staffing firm that wants to find candidates and attract them, that wants to hire and recruit those candidates, and then bring them into the organization so they can start being an employee and actually start paying them, obviously, is an end goal for everybody. So that's the space we're in, talent acquisition. I'm very, very fortunate. I just passed the 17-year mark here at iCIMS. My career has been a fun path, starting as an intern in marketing and customer service, joining full-time after I graduated from college, really building up all of our customer experience through our help desk, our professional services team, our account management division. And then right around 2010, a pretty big shift in my career is that as that team just got so big that we said, let's bring in some really experienced leadership that can grow from 100 to 300. And let's let Andrew focus on what he does best, and that's start and build teams from scratch. So I hopped over to the sales side, the revenue side of the business, started our sales engineer group as an individual contributor, and have now grown it out to a team of 15 folks, now serving as sort of the director over the department. So it's been a really fun career, and I kind of joke around that I think I'm the youngest person that's been at the same company for 17 years.
Yeah, I'm surprised not many people actually stay in one company now for 17 years. And I'm not judging, but in your picture, you look fairly young. So why did you stay in one company?
Sure, yeah. So I'm 35. I've been here for now essentially half my life. I think it's me and Mark Zuckerberg are the only people that have stuck around at the same company that long.
Nice.
And truthfully, what keeps me here is twofold. The easy answer is to say that I just really genuinely like the people that I work with. But the sort of more complex answer is that at the end of the day, I know myself very well. I know what motivates me, and I know what helps me to sleep at night. And when you're working in sales, there's always those tough situations where you're trying to do the best you can for the customer, and you're also trying to do the best you can for the company. And I just really like that at the end of the day, I can sit down and say, I didn't have to stretch the truth. I didn't have to bend too much. I didn't have to compromise or question my own values in order to sell this product. So I genuinely believe in the product. I genuinely believe in the mission of this organization. And I just feel really invested here. So it's kind of like my second home. I think I've been here longer than my actual home, so it might even be my first home.
Okay. Well, it's always good to not have to to be able to like the product that you're selling. So it comes through in demos and all sorts of conversations you have with the customer.
You hit it right. When you have that passion, when you can really believe in what you're talking about, it does become very, very obvious, especially to the customers. And I think they appreciate that genuineness and that excitement. It's something that I really try to make sure I bring to all my conversations.
Okay. So I always start off by talking about hey, what makes a good SE? But I've recently got this question on LinkedIn from a listener. If someone is not in an SE role and he's trying to break into an SE role, I had the same problem where you have to have experience as an SE to become an SE, but you can't have the experience unless you're an SE. So how would you recommend for a technical person who's probably maybe he's in your company working on the coding of that SaaS product to switch into a sales role or an SE role?
Sure, I'm happy to address that. And actually, funny enough, I think sometimes that sort of initial statement of in order to be an SE, you need to have that experience. I try to sometimes flip that model on its head a little bit. We here, and me specifically, when I'm looking to grow out my team, I am really focused on internal transfers and internal mobility, as opposed to looking externally for folks that do have sales engineer experience already. So for me, I would agree with that main thing that you said. It always has to start out with a strong technical understanding of the product that you either want to sell or something similar that's going to give me as a hiring manager or another sales engineer hiring manager the confidence that this person can learn the technology. So as long as you have that strong confidence in the product, then the way that I would suggest somebody start breaking into the market is to be able to acquire or demonstrate skills speaking in front of customers, potentially managing relationships and accounts, or just being able to show a really direct transfer of customer-facing work from your technical background. So as an example, I would look at an implementation manager, somebody that helps set up our product. I'd look at them very favorably because they're going to come to the table with a strong understanding of the product, with a high degree of credibility because they're going to have lots of customer stories and examples that they can relate to future customers. I helped company XYZ implement these 5 solutions and processes, and that's going to help them relate to customers and build out those stories. I could look at somebody that's an account manager or even potentially a sales rep. Maybe if they're the smartest sales rep that I've ever spoken to and they really understand the technology, now I'm going to feel really confident that, okay, well, they understand a lot of what the pressures are of being in the actual sales world. So they know that they do need to have that art of convincing and presenting value, not just directly showcasing functional product. Those folks also tend to be people that have a little bit more experience saying no or taking a tough stance with a customer. And that's something that I would personally value because almost that the power of the no builds that credibility, and it lets the customer know that you're not just sitting here saying yes to every single request that they have. So that confidence to deliver a hard no or to gauge how much of a showstopper something is going to be, I think that's important. And then even somebody that's truly technical, a business analyst or somebody that works in the development side, but they have that personality, they have that passion, they want to get in front of people. I think a sales engineer role is a great transition for people that ultimately might want to get into sales because you're in the environment, you're working, you're competing, but you might not necessarily be carrying that number or that quota behind you, which can be a lot of pressure for some people. So sometimes it might even be a path for somebody that is interested in going into sales to kind of get their feet wet, keep their technical knowledge, and start getting introduced to sales. So for me, I look at people with a very diverse set of backgrounds, but it is always based on the idea of, hey, do they understand the technology, and am I confident that I can put them in front of people to present?
All right. Well, this kind of opens up a whole can of worms. So maybe I can step back and dig into it a little bit. So implementation manager, is that the person who manages an implementation team, or is that the title of a person who actually goes and implements stuff on site?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So here at iCIMS, we're actually talking about the quite literal project manager or the person that's working directly with the customer, understanding their requirements and their process, and then either is actually changing and building the software themselves, or is working directly with the team and kind of directing and guiding. So I would say it's normally an individual contributor level person that is actually doing the work themselves.
I just wanted to clarify that it doesn't really have to be a manager for you to look at him. He could be just a regular Joe who actually goes on site and works with customers on a daily basis. That would add value to your team.
I would totally agree with that. I would almost say there's a chance that in some ways I would appreciate an individual contributor more than somebody with a management title.
Right. How about sales reps? So I don't know if you were joking or not, but have you had a sales rep go from being a salesperson to becoming a sales engineer?
So on my team of 15, I actually have 3 people that went from direct sales to being sales engineers. And I have to say that we've been extremely satisfied with their performance so far.
Oh, I'd be curious to understand their logic. So maybe a little bit background about me. I'm a sales engineer. I switched to become a salesperson for 4 months while they were looking to hire another salesperson for myself, and I just did not enjoy it. Now I appreciate the sales engineer role a lot more. So I don't know if their logic is the same as mine, but I'd be curious to hear their logic at some point. I'm not asking you to speak for them, but I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, you know what? I'd be more than happy to make some introductions, and I'd agree. I don't want to necessarily speak for them, but some things that I've commonly heard is that people do enjoy. I'll kind of use the term when you says you're in the fight. People enjoy being in the fight, but sometimes taking a step back from being that frontline sales rep, but still staying in there side by side with them without some of that pressure, without some of the hard chase that a sales rep might need to do. It still fills that passion for somebody that maybe has had a a strong, long career within sales, but wants to continue staying there without having to push that constant chase.
Okay. And you did talk about the power of no. And that's a very interesting topic for me because sometimes when you work with account managers, the answer should never be no. So how does one develop the skill of saying no? Because it's actually a skill. It's not something that you're born with. Almost everybody wants to say yes first. So how do you develop that?
So I completely agree with you. It is a skill that you need to work at and learn. Whether it's good or bad, I feel like I'm one of the people here that is looked upon to be the one to say no sometimes. It's a role that I appreciate and relish. But I think essentially what it really requires is two things. One, it requires a strong degree of listening skills and your ability to read the customer, because you don't want to just deliver a hard no if it's something that is truly important, that could be a showstopper, that is going to entirely derail the conversation. But to me, it's also important that you do always stick with your values and what you know to be possible or not. So it requires a lot of experience in answering similar questions. It requires a deep understanding of knowing your own product capabilities, understanding the roadmap of the product so that you can determine if something is going to be feasible in the short term. I would call the short term sort of the next 12 months, versus something that I know that my piece of software is probably not ever going to be turned into a tool that operates and drives a Ferrari. That's just not something I would expect this business to take a turn to. So, ultimately, if I get asked a question that's too far out of line, I feel that it's important to just represent very accurately where the company is going, where the product is going, and what's going to be feasible or not. And there have been times as an organization where we've taken a hard enough no with a customer that we've essentially said, hey, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to work with you on our terms of how we're going to do things. But if this is going to be something that you can't give on, well, then let's identify that now and let's part ways amicably, rather than wasting both our time, but more importantly, rather than wasting the customer's time with something that we know is going to be just absolutely impossible that we're not going to agree to.
I have two comments on that. So that's actually a very good point where doing that helps the customer like you better, in the sense that, oh, you're not wasting, I don't want to waste your time. We're never going to be able to do this, so we can, if there's something else you need, please reach out to us in the future. They tend to reach out. Whereas if you waste their time and do a 3-month POC with them and it doesn't work, at the end they're just frustrated and they don't want to talk to you ever again. At least that's my experience.
I completely agree with that statement. That's what builds relationships. That's what builds credibility. And to me, those are the things that are really important when you're looking at a long-term relationship with a customer. Especially if you've had the fortune to be with the company for a long time, that people are going to cycle back and they're going to come back. If you're with a company that's in it for the long term, these big, corporations and things like that, none of them are going anywhere. Our company's not going anywhere, so there's always time in the future to win that relationship and win that opportunity back.
Well, you won part of the relationship by being trustworthy and saying, we can't do that. We're not going to waste your time.
Exactly.
And so my second point is, and this is my personal philosophy, and I would love for you to critique it, agree with it, or make me change it. So I'm open to be for my mind to be changed. But most of the no's, or the ideas of the no's, happen for me during a discovery call. And for me, I would never say no during a discovery call. Whether we do it or not, I would actually don't give information on what we can do, what we can't do. I just wait for us to leave. Then I regroup with my account manager. And if there's something we don't know, we get the product managers involved, see what's happening. And at that point, with the agreement of the account manager and myself, we then tell the customer yes or no. Is that a good strategy to follow, or would you recommend something different?
So I would say 98%. I would agree with that. I look at those initial discovery calls as just requirements gathering, information gathering, as opposed to really needing to provide information back or answers on the fly. That said, and the reason that I kind of said 98% aligned with that, if I hear something in the discovery call that is just totally out of line and it's just so far fetched that I would be nervous about it, I might ask a couple more probing questions and try and figure out there how important it is. See if I can sway, even in that initial conversation, see if I can sway a customer off of a specific topic. To use, again, my own company as an example, we offer what I would refer to as sort of a quote unquote a point solution or a best in breed type of product within talent acquisition. We do compete with much larger organizations that offer both talent acquisition software as well as talent management software. So think of, an Oracle, an ADP selling their payroll, selling their employee management, and they just kind of throw in talent acquisition as a little bit of a throw-in. So for us, during our discovery calls, we are sometimes trying to lay the groundwork and lay some obstacles for people that we know we're going to be competing with. We know they're going to be looking at sort of a broader solution set than we offer. So we may try and influence and steer the customer towards some of our value propositions and some of our benefits during the discovery call. So again, it's not necessarily that I would deliver a hard no during a discovery call. I would definitely agree with that. But I may try to steer and influence a customer during that discovery call to benefit ourselves a little bit.
So that brings up a great point. During discovery calls, all right, maybe we can step back before we actually get to the discovery call. How do you recommend your engineers prep for a discovery call?
To me, preparation for the discovery call is among the most important things that both a sales rep and a sales engineer can do. I think it's extremely important that you do not only research on the people that are going to be on a call, looking at their background so you can see if you have mutual connections, if they've used products like yours or competing products in the past. Look for things that you can relate to. Look for changes in their career so that you can identify projects that they've worked on and then pull out existing customer stories that are going to help that client, that new client, relate to your experience, relate to what you've done. Beyond sort of that relationship level discovery, I'm a big believer in essentially trying to do the same demonstration that I would normally do for a customer, go through their experience. So you can speak very intelligently about problems you may have identified with their existing and current technology. It's going to show them that, hey, the sales engineer has done, a real amount of preparation. They're offering me solutions and tips so that when we get to an actual presentation, the questions that I'm asking, sometimes I'll already know the answers to, or it helps the customer feel like, wow, this person really understands my challenges because they're bringing up the points and concerns that the customer already had without actually having to tell me. So to me, the amount of preparation that goes into a discovery call, you almost can't over prepare for it. It is extremely important.
I'm going to have to rewind the last 2 minutes that you just spoke and listen to it again because I find that very important and I agree with it wholeheartedly.
Awesome. We want to, just to add on there, one thing that a lot of organizations will do, like discovery pathing and discovery training for their sales reps to teach them how to do that. We actually required our sales engineers to go through the same training and same certification. So that way we all have the same expectations. We all have the same approach. And I think it actually increased our sales engineers' ability to do their discovery by almost thinking like a sales rep.
So here's my problem that I have. Not with what you said, with the fact that only salespeople are trained to discovery. I feel discovery, other than like budget and timeline and that sort of thing, is more of a sales engineer's domain. Because the sales engineer needs to be able to understand what they want and why they want it to provide the best solution. So yeah, it's very good that SEs are getting trained on that in your company. I think that should be common for all companies, wherever they have SEs. So, you mentioned research people. Like, how do you research? Are you using LinkedIn? Is there something else that people like you recommend they use? I'm not asking for trade secrets here, but whatever you can share, I'll be happy to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say a primary tool that we use is LinkedIn. And candidly, we don't have the paid LinkedIn recruiter accounts that get you the unfettered access to everything. We're just using regular old plain free LinkedIn access. Don't get me wrong, there are some people that have that advanced access, and I'm sure it helps them. But unfortunately, I don't. But I still feel that that's pretty effective. We use Salesforce as our CRM. So we have some different integrations with some different tools that give a little bit of information about the company itself there. But then honestly, we're just going out there and using Google, using the company website, and researching where we can. In the industry that we're in, there are certain things about customer websites and about their career pages where the jobs are listed that help us figure out what competitor a customer might be using. And now I can then leverage our internal competitive intelligence tools that we have just from our own data that we've gathered, and some competitive intel tools, like we use one called Compelligence, where now, okay, great, I know the customer, I know about the customer, I've determined what tool they're currently using, and that opens up another entire line of questioning for me to find out, are they having these types of problems that I normally see with competitor X, or is it a different set of challenges? So it just opens up a different line of thinking for me by knowing some information about who they're currently using. It starts giving me a picture of some of the challenges they're probably facing.
I actually do the same thing. So I work for Sparent Communications. I don't know if you've heard of it. We do test and measurement equipment. We sell that equipment. So what I end up doing is going on company websites, going on their careers, and looking for testing positions, product verification positions, and I see what products they're looking at and what protocols, and from there it helps me at least get an idea of what to ask when I get through the door. So when you're doing the discovery, you mentioned steering the customer towards your product. How does one do that? How does one steer a customer to your advantage?
So again, this I think is one of the things that kind of comes with some experience. It's almost a little bit of a craft that you need to work at. But essentially, what I like to try and do is, instead of just asking a direct question, I'm not one to take direct pot shots at customers or at competitors. I don't like to sling mud directly. I will usually try to ask them questions, that dial into things that I am aware are existing problems. So, for example, if I know one specific competitor has a really hard time building reports, and I know that there's fees associated with it, and I know that it takes a long time, those are all questions that instead of just directly asking, I'll start asking them about, how are you reporting up to your executive chain? Because everybody ultimately is responsible to somebody up the chain and needs to show value, needs to show the ROI, and needs to show what they're doing. So by asking some of those sort of more generic or higher level questions, it gets the customer talking about some of the things that they may like or not like. And then that will let me start asking some of the questions that will benefit iCIMS. So if they say, yes, I do need to do those reports, they might open up that it's a certain challenge or it takes a long time or something along those lines. Well, once I have that, now I can start prodding a little further. Why is it a challenge? Is it about your current tool? Is it about the data that you're getting? So you can start peeling back some of the layers of the onion around where do they have these challenges, and how can I then start to tie that back to, okay, well, you're saying that it's because the data quality isn't great. Well, that reminds me of company XYZ that we work with. Here's how we helped monitor their data quality, as just one example.
How do you get that information, that competitive information? How do you know a competitor has problems with that? Do you have a team that does that, or just through experience?
So it's a little bit of both. We internally only have one person whose partial role is competitive intelligence. They're sort of the coordinator, if you will. So they oversee the system. They're a single point of reference internally to receive information, and we just make these individuals or that individual very accessible to the entire sales team, so that when one of our sales reps hears something from a current customer or from a prospect about why they're thinking of leaving, we acquire that information, we get it to our coordinator, who then puts it in the system, cleans it up, lines it, and then publishes things out to the broader sales team. So there's newsletters that go out and things like that to try and remind everyone that, hey, this information's here. But we also make it part of one of the sales stages that we have to go through of saying, hey, you need to do the competitive research. You need to find this information out. And we also find that once a customer actually signs on the dotted line, becomes a customer, that's a really fantastic time to just get as much information from them as you possibly can. They're so happy with you that the day they sign the contract, the day after they sign the contract, they'll probably tell you everything about their sales process. They'll probably tell you why you won. They'll probably tell you all the problems with the tools that they didn't pick, because they're, candidly, they're kind of looking to justify the decision that they made. So give them the opportunity to spill the beans, to tell you everything that they can, certainly respecting confidentiality and things like that. But they're probably going to be willing to tell you a lot of information about why you won, why you beat those competitors. And then in doing your normal requirements gathering, and especially during your normal implementation, you should also be able to acquire a lot of information about the previous system under the sort of, and it's not a guise, it's very genuine. I need to know why you left the current system and what the problems were, so that we don't just recreate those problems in our tool. So that's, again, a skill that an implementation manager or a project leader should have, so that they can acquire that information and also feed that back in.
So is that like a formal post-sale debriefing, or is that something that just the salesperson does or the SE does on, like, unofficially? How do you guys do that?
So we do have a process internally. It is initiated and led by the sales rep themselves, where the expectation is that they're going to acquire that information. We call them internally Y buys, and share those Y buys out with the team, so that everybody's aware of it. So it is like a formal process that we have.
Great. Speaking of sales reps, so you mentioned you have 15 SEs. Is that all in US or global?
So that is global. Candidly, we're primarily based in the United States. We do have some SE resources in the United Kingdom, but we cover our global operations from our US headquarters.
And how many sales reps per sales engineer?
So if I use the traditional definition of sales reps, where, at a lot of organizations, sales reps manage existing customers as well as go hunting for new customers. So if I use that definition, the number would be about 5 to 1, 5 account executives per one sales engineer.
Do you hear a lot of complaints from your SEs about all the RSM or all the sales reps fighting over their time?
So we run pretty lean. We do have the ability to grow our headcount on demand. Right now, I don't have anybody that I'm too worried about burning out. We're probably getting to the border of, hey, I need to add another head or two relatively soon, though.
Okay, because I've talked to other SEs who have this complaint that they give me an example, like one of their one of their sales reps emails them, hey, is your calendar up to date? It's like, yes. And then they schedule something right on top of another meeting. So it's just, from a scheduling perspective, I hear a lot of SEs who work with multiple account managers have this issue, and you don't seem to have that on your team, or do they just manage it differently?
So I will say that problem is, I don't think that's unique. That is consistent everywhere. I do try to really empower my sales engineers to manage their schedules, to make it clear to the sales reps that, hey, just because my calendar is open, you can probably book it. And we operate at a very rapid pace. So we understand we need to move quickly. But at the same time, we've kind of instilled with the reps of you need to think about what you're doing. If you're going to schedule someone back to back, you're risking them having no time to prepare. You're risking that call running 3 to 5 minutes over, and now they're late to your call. So, we encourage them to think about it. I'm okay with people blocking 10 or 15 minutes in advance or before their calls so that, the schedules are updated that way. But I also do set the expectation that kind of the way a sales rep, if they're establishing a good relationship with their customer, it's a give and take. It's not just always saying yes to everything the customer wants. Well, that's the relationship that I tell, and try and instill with my sales engineers. This is a give and take. We're here to support the sales reps, but we are not, we're not in servitude to these folks. They need to work with us and they need to understand the pressure. So, just like there's a power of no to the customers, with my internal sales reps, there's an even bigger power of no, and I don't have to worry about ruining a deal by saying no to them.
Right. And from like pretty much all SEs have to be technical, have to learn their product. Do they have time? Do they set time aside to actually learn that product, or is it just if they have 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, that's what they do?
So my approach is to formally schedule times. I'm really big on time management and staying organized. Internally, our company actually has on somebody's job requirements that is a part of their annual performance review, a minimum number of hours of professional development that are required. And if I see somebody try and acquire those hours in the final month of the year, they're not going to get as strong a rating on that part of their performance review as somebody that consistently spreads that learning out across the entire year. And I set that expectation up front so that people know, hey, try and bang out 30 hours in December. That means, one, you're not giving me 30 hours of productivity in one of the most important months of the year. And two, you're probably not retaining much of that because you're just sitting there, smashing training videos at midnight or something like that. So I really encourage people to do it throughout the year. Schedule things, block it off. I have no problem with people blocking off a half day here or there to go and do some training. We also make that a big part of our one-on-ones, is talking about where do they want more training, what skills do they want to acquire, and whether it's information that I can personally impart to them or whether it's trainings that I have our training and talent development team deliver to them. We want that to be a collaborative effort.
So they have both options, whether they learn on their own or you provide or the company provides training through professional services.
Absolutely.
Is there a book that you would recommend for time management?
So for time management, I can't say that I have a book there. There's a Franklin Covey course. Franklin Covey is a very well-known sort of a learning and development course in the United States. They offer some really great tips and classes for different ways to stay organized. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact name, but it's like 5 Habits of Highly Organized People or something along those lines. It's a specific course they offer, and that's one that a lot of people find very useful. But I can't say I've actually read a book on organization.
Is he related like Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
So that might actually be the one I'm referring to. So thank you for getting us correct while we're doing a podcast.
No worries. Anytime. If you want to read a book or you want to recommend a book to your team, there's The One Thing by Gary Keller. It's all about like focusing on one thing. It's anti-multitasking book where you block some time, focus on one thing, and then move on to the next. But you have to block your time in your calendar. And if you don't want the book, there's a podcast for that. It's called The One Thing as well.
Awesome. I'll definitely check that. I actually believe one of the folks on my team has actually read that because they talk a lot about the negative side of keeping your Outlook open on one of your screens and how you're constantly getting pulled out of that. And they also talked a lot about how letting your Outlook inbox dictate your day means that you're not in control of your day and you're not driving what's important. So making it more of a choice of when I am going to go and check my email and when I'm going to go look at it, as opposed to people coming to you and dictating what's important to you.
So he must have read the book. It sounds like he's read the book.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
You don't need to read the book. Just talk to him for an entire day. All right. Well, I like that we've talked about discovery. I haven't really dug deep with any of my other guests about discovery. Any other tips or tricks for discovery calls that we discussed that we didn't discuss?
The only thing I would throw out there is one, the discovery that you're doing, make sure you're writing it down, develop a consistent format or template so that you have a consistent approach. But you can also start turning your discovery notes into the plan of what is going to be implemented. It can make it much easier to share with another sales engineer. Let's say that somebody ends up covering a meeting for you. You're going to be have a much stronger foundation because you've put together solid notes. So really clearly documenting everything and doing it in a way that you can repeat it is going to be something that's very important. And we just kind of spoke about it, but actually blocking off time to go and do it. Don't just rely on 15 minutes before a call or something like that. Block off an hour, 2 hours, a day before, 2 days before. Really give yourself the time and the opportunity to prepare for those discovery calls, because in all candor, I think a lot of deals can be won or lost in the discovery call, or at least in that early phase before sometimes you even get to the actual product demonstration.
That's actually true. I'm not surprised by that, by the way. It just sounded like I was, but I wasn't. um, you said that have a consistent format for discovery calls. Did anyone on your team, or did you create a form for discovery calls that everybody can use and can share?
So yes, we do have an internal template. I'm going to say it was a very collaborative effort that involved a number of different people. I will see if I can find a version that I can share. I can't share anything too proprietary, but maybe I can work on something.
Oh, I would appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sure all my 5 listeners would thank you as well. Actually, I think I have more, but hey, let's stick with 5. All right. Well, I know you're busy, so we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna go to the not so fire round, which is as slow as the regular questions. Which, again, I'm not sure why I call it that. So, other than a notebook and a pen, what other essential tool an SE should be using?
Man, other than a notebook and a pen, I'm gonna say a Wi-Fi hotspot so that you can always make sure you can deliver your presentation if you're internet-based. I'm going to say Google is an unbelievably effective tool for finding out information that you need in a very rapid and quick fashion. And I would say any sort of resource at your company that gathers information about existing customers, that tool should be your absolute best friend. We quite literally, as sales engineers at iCIMS, make a point to talk to account managers, help desk, implementation, traditional sales reps, and just gather everything that we can about what our customers are actually doing to try and turn those into, quote unquote, like a silver bullet type of story, just a customer story. Even if it's not a full-blown testimonial or a full-blown reference, as long as I can have something that is based in fact and based in reality, that is tied to the success of a customer, and that information is going to be unbelievably powerful when you're meeting with your customer. So any sort of resource or database like that is something I would really call out.
Nice. So is it like CR, like Salesforce? Is that what you guys use? You mentioned you used it earlier.
So we do use Salesforce, but we actually even pull some of those out into like a standalone database.
Okay.
Just so that we can do a little bit of more direct reporting and we can input data there without muddying up some of our Salesforce data.
Okay. Is there a book or resource that every SE should be exposed to?
So actually, couldn't be happier that you asked this question, because sitting right on my desk is a book called Demonstrating to Win by Robert, I'm going to mess up his last name because I've never said that loud before, Reifstahl. I really like this book. It just gives a lot of different techniques and tips around how to present, common pitfalls, common mistakes, and things like that. how you can lead conversations. It's a book that every one of my team members reads, and I think it's a great read.
Okay, awesome. I'll have a link to it on my show notes, which would be show 9, wethesalesengineers.com/show 9, and you can get it from there if you guys want. We already talked about tips and tricks for time management, so I'm just gonna skip that. Is there an advice that you would give an SE that you feel they don't get from anybody else?
Wow, I like that question. What I would tell an SE that advice that they might not get is, certainly in your role and what you're doing, it is important that we follow the rules, we follow company process. We don't always want to go out there just going rogue and going completely crazy. But on the flip side, I will say it's always important to question what you're doing and why you're doing it, and make sure that the things that you are doing are valuable. Ask yourself, is this contributing to winning an opportunity? Is it actually contributing to retaining this customer? Is it something that is really in my wheelhouse? Just because I can do it, does that mean I should? An example that I commonly use with a lot of members of my team, I'm pretty sure if I went and sat at our reception desk, I would be a really unbelievable receptionist. I would be great. But the company isn't paying me to do that job. The company is paying me to go out and win business and win revenue. So if I have sales reps and account managers coming to me with things that are truly outside the scope of what I should be doing, that aren't going to help us win revenue or retain revenue, I owe it to the company, I owe it to myself and to the customer to question, should this come to me? Should I be the one doing this? Just because I can, just because maybe I've done in the past, am I really the right person? Should this really go into a service desk or a help desk? Is this really contributing towards our end goal? So that would be some advice that I might ask. Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you always should.
Well, this brings up a million other questions, but I think that's a very good high note to end this show at. I don't want to bring it down by asking any other questions. That was amazing. So we're just going to end at that.
Awesome.
I'm gonna publish this episode next Monday, so that'll be the 18th of June.
Perfect.
And if I get the document from you before then I'll post it on that show. Otherwise, I do have a giveaway of 3 books or 2 books and a notebook for the listeners. If they do a bunch of stuff, I'll talk about that after we hang up. So I really appreciate your time, Andrew, and
of course,
this has been awesome.
Good. No, it was a lot of fun, and I'll definitely be able to send over something. I might have to just make it a little more generic, but I can definitely send over something.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it, hopefully, and I'll talk to you soon.
For sure. I'm really appreciate the time today.
Oh, me as well. Thanks, Andrew. Bye.
Have an awesome one.
You too. Bye. All right, that's it. We're done. That was my conversation with Andrew, and it was a great conversation, at least for me. I learned a lot just talking to him, so thank you, Andrew, for being here, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Lots of info if you're looking to become an SE or you want to just be a better SE, starting with discovery calls. So I wanted to clarify one thing. Andrew was correct. The company that provides training is called Franklin Covey. Stephen Covey is the person who wrote the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He had his company, which was then acquired by Franklin Quest, and then they merged the name into Franklin Covey. If you want to learn more about that company, the link is in the show notes. wethesalesengineers.com/show 9. I'm not affiliated, but feel free to use the link. Or it's franklincovey.com, so it's not that hard. You can just use that if you want. Andrew was not able to get me the Discovery interview template before the show was published. I interviewed him like 3 days ago, and it's the weekend, so he probably just didn't have time. So once he gets it to me, I will upload it into an upcoming show's show notes. Quick reminder about the giveaway. So please subscribe to get the newsletter at wethesalesengineers.com/show 9 to start collecting points. If you subscribe from any other page, you will still get the points, but you will probably not get a follow-up email on how to earn more points unless I actually notice that you did it from a different email. And then I will send this info separately, which means with a busy work schedule, that might actually happen. So again, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you, Andrew, for your time. It was educational for me, and thank you all for listening. I will see you next week. With that, this is Ramsey signing off.